What are we whispering about?
And came to the lava tree. The lava tree was this beech tree which was in this forest. It was close to a castle. There I saw these three fairies flying up in the air. They were about 3 foot tall, and they were girl fairies with dresses, blackish purple dresses, and long black hair. They were holding a gigantic necklace with a shining red rock, like a ruby, hanging from the end of it. The ruby shone about as bright as the moon, but it didn't light up anything around it. They opened the necklace and they flew up to the love hut and put it around the bottom of the trunk. After they closed the necklace, they flew away, and the necklace faded slowly into the trunk of the love hut tree, near the roots. After this, we went to the fairy place, which was of this kind of clearing within the forest that we call the fairy place. And I looked behind one of the trees, then I saw a white shape.
In the air, by the sea, from the land, and within you and me. Fairies are whispering. This is Claire Casely, and I am a fairy whisperer. To catch a whisper, you have to listen closely. Listen with me. Hello and welcome everyone to Fairy Whispering. I'm your host, Claire Casely. To connect with the podcast, you can contact me, Claire, at thefairywhispering.com, and find the podcast on social media at Fairy Whispering Podcast. Thank you for being here with me on this journey and for supporting the podcast. Enjoy this episode. Hi Tristan, welcome back.
Okay, thank you.
This time we were going to talk about your experiences in the forest. Start wherever you'd like to start. If there's an experience you'd like to begin with.
Yeah, well, hard to say where would be logical to start. I guess we'll start in the beginning. That's always good. This forest that I had a lot of experience in is a forest that is situated quite near where I've grown up. So I've kind of spent time in it always, ever since I was a very, very small child. So I had a pretty nice relationship to it. And then at some point, I think my father, he always went there when he was during the night, and then one time I asked if I would come with, and then when I did that, I had all these different visions, which I think I have talked about in other podcasts. So probably don't need to go too much into details with them, but that's kind of started a cascade effect where I, of course, had a lot of those visions that we've talked about that happened in my room, but also went on more of these walks at night, which we called moonwalks, where I had a lot of these experiences. Yes, the first one here was was January 2007 at the first one. Yeah, so that was right before I was so that was slightly before I turned 12 at the first time I did that. Um, and then later, um, during the year, I did some more. I think it's also during that period that I began having these very vivid dreams that sometimes tied in with it. I think I can maybe find one. See if we could perhaps start with this one here. This would be a nice one. I guess I can just read them out. Is that best?
Yeah, read them out and then
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, if I've got anything to ask afterwards, I'll ask some questions, or if you've got anything to add, that'd be great. Yeah.
I think here, this book. You get the right ones out. These then like five little notebooks. These BODAVs here. So yeah, this one. This one's good. This one happened. They were kind of yeah. This is two different ones, but we'll take the first one. That was in April 2008. So me and my father went into the forest around 7 o'clock, and when we went in there, it was filled with lots of these spiders. And when I say spiders, these were these spirits that are often saw in the forests, which had the shape of spiders. These spiders had elves riding on them. And then we saw something that looked like a lake in the big grass plain near this tree, which was called the lava tree. Um, and there were more of these elf spider riders, but it wasn't actually a lake, it was just the shade of the tree, which looked like a lake to me. And then there came this elf with a chariot, which was pulled by a big polar bear, and it was riding straight towards this lake. And when it got there, it began to sink into this lake, this shadow lake, and the chariot began breaking to pieces. Then we walked further. There were still lots of spiders, and came to the lava tree. The lava tree was this beech tree which was in this forest. It was close to a castle. There I saw these three fairies flying up in the air. They were about 3 foot tall, and they were girl fairies with dresses, blackish purple dresses, and long black hair. They were holding a gigantic necklace with a shining red rock, like a ruby, hanging from the end of it. The ruby shone about as bright as the moon, but it didn't light up anything around it. They opened the necklace and they flew up to the love hut and put it around the bottom of the trunk. After they closed the necklace, they flew away, and the necklace faded slowly into the trunk of the lava tree, near the roots. After this, we went to the fairy place, which was of this kind of clearing within the forest that we call the fairy place. And I looked behind one of the trees. Then I saw a white shape. I ran over to see who it was, but the shape ran behind the same tree where it vanished. Then I sat on one of the stumps and looked up in the same tree, and there I saw a fawn looking down at me. All I could see was his head, which was human size, shining white like the moon, with stag horns. After that, we went out to the forest, and I began to consider how much they trusted us and we trusted them. On the lawn near the forest, I saw a shape coming from the other side of the forest. The shape had big ram horns and his head, and I recognized it as a satyr. When it got to the middle of the lawn, it made odd monkey-like movements with its arms, like a dance. Right, left, right, left. Finally, when we were near the station, because we usually took the train there and back, because it was, yeah, just one stop from where we lived. I saw in one of the big trees by the botanical garden, which was near there's a little botanical garden near this forest, a giant monkey with a gun. Then my dad and I talked about that this was perhaps a sign from them to tell us that this might be how they saw humans, as monkeys with guns. After that, we went to the train and went home.
Mm. Wow, there's so much in that as I was listening, Tristan. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course, I thought that one was one that had a lot of interesting little things there.
Yeah, there's lots to explore, especially from things that I've heard from other guests that I've spoken to on the
Yeah.
podcast. So, the elves riding the spiders. I did an episode about the Forest of Dean recently because I went up there. I spoke to a guest who'd had a dream about this area of the Forest of Dean that's being developed, and
Hmm.
I did an episode about that. And
Oh, I have to check that out.
yeah, there was a writer, a local writer called Dina Bryant.
Okay, haven't heard of her.
Yeah, she saw fairies in the Forest of Dean, and
Cool.
she saw them riding on dragonflies
Oh, yeah.
around the ponds because there's lots of water there. It's a very watery place.
Mm.
And I also recently spoke to someone here where I live, just randomly met at an event we were both at, who said she'd seen fairies riding dragonflies in woodland as well. So this is like an interesting
Nice.
correlation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it seems to be common enough this with these beans here that what is small and what is big is very relative.
Yes.
So a spider can be large enough for them to ride, and other animals can be so tiny if they prefer that.
Were the spiders quite big or were they normal,
Yeah, they're quite
quite
big.
big?
I've
Yeah.
I've got I've got several different experiences with those spiders where they vary in size, but they're usually relatively large. Sometimes very big. Other times just like still very large for a spider, but like size of a small dog or cat or something.
Right.
But other times the size of a larger dog or even a horse or
Yeah. And do you think, I mean, there's lots I want to ask about this, but do you think the way that they were presenting themselves in these various forms was a way of communicating a specific message with you?
not in not in those days, but now I do, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Um, those days I generally took it at face value. So
Yes.
if I was seeing spiders out there, then that was because that there were beings out there that were spiders, and beings that were elves and stuff like that with that form. Um, but of course nowadays when I've looked more into these different experiences, tried to analyze them, and um, I do think that there is some kind of system to their forms which is like more deliberate than forms in as we know them, that they are something that they have chosen.
Yeah, because I'm with the ruby necklace. I'm wondering if someone else that was more focused on perhaps didn't know much about fairies or had experience with fairies, maybe they'd see the red light and interpret that as a UFO.
True. Yeah, true.
So, kind of, I mean, I think all these things are interrelated, aren't they? But I'm sure,
Yeah, well, I think that was
yeah,
I think it was Jung who said that was that the modern fairy encounters have kind of were getting replaced with UFO encounters
yes,
as the way the archetypal world communicated.
yeah. So it's interesting that you saw this as a ruby necklace. Someone else might have seen it as the eye of a cryptid, perhaps, and someone else might have
Yeah,
seen it as a UFO.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, but
Um,
what do you think was the purpose of the ruby merging with the tree roots? The-
the different ways of looking at it, I think in some ways it's taking it more at face value, it can be kind of seen as a way of showing veneration towards the tree.
Mm.
That this tree is like special, which it was. It was a tree that was very special for us. We often came and visit it. It was also a tree that was generally special for people in the area. It was a tree which, because it was called the love hut tree because the two trunks were beginning to grow together. It was probably two trees originally that were beginning to grow together, I imagine. And the place where they were growing together kind of formed a little hole, which was shaped like a heart.
Ah,
Uh,
yeah.
at least it was shaped like a heart when I was a kid. When I grew older, it became more round. And sadly, the tree has since been cut down.
Oh,
But it was one that we visited a lot, and also local people, couples would carve their names into it.
oh,
Um,
yeah. Mm.
so it was a special tree in that way, and I think that it could be seen as a way of honoring that, or giving this ruby necklace.
Mm. Mm.
Um, I think it could also be seen as kind of a metaphor for the self, with the self as being in some ways the ruby, merging into the soul of the world, which represented by the tree, like the world tree.
Mm. Mm. There's so many layers to fairy experiences and your
Yeah.
experiences. It's fascinating. And did your father Robert, did he experience these things in the same way as you or differently?
Not a lot less. Sometimes he would also see things, but he very rarely saw these. I don't think he ever really saw these shapes that I could see. Like these beings. He would sometimes see movement, or something like that.
Mm.
So you'd be able to see that there was something more up in a tree or behind a tree. But it was usually only me who could see these actual forms, which I saw strangely clearly.
Yeah, and did your visions of the forest, do you know what was first? Your dreams and visions of the forest? Or you when you went into do you see what I mean? Did you have dreams and visions about the forest first? Which then
Yeah, in that way.
yeah.
Um, well, I had some, of course,
Mm.
because it's a place I've always been.
Mm.
So I've always had some dreams of it. I think we do have one of these childhood dreams about it.
Mm.
I think dream about Canunas, I think it's called. But otherwise, the dreams they accelerate after I had the visions.
Mm.
I'm gonna try and find that first one.
Sure, that'd be great.
Let's see. Yep, there's a very short one. Um, so I had a dream about Canunas. In the dream, Daddy and me were lost in the forest. Then we met Canunas and he led us out. And the dream Canunas was a pan figure type with hairy brown legs, hooves, horn, and he was a little bit smaller than my dad in height. After he led us out of the forest, he took a train and the dream ended. That was in 2003. So that was 4 years before the first moonwalk here, and I guess um, yeah, 6 years. No, 5 years before this dream, this vision that I just described.
Yeah, so it's like do you see that as the forest reaching out to you, perhaps?
I think, yeah, that dream was something like that.
Hmm.
I think, I think, yeah, the forest reaching out to me in some ways, but it was also just I was always a part of it. because the forest was a place I'd always been since I was a child. I'd always explored it. Always had my little games and fantasies there. So then kind of have this experience of I think the first time I went to the forest, I felt that I needed to go with my father, and I think that that might have been the forest kind of reaching out in a kind of saying, well, he's kind of age now. He needs to come and have this initiation.
Yes. It's interesting how places do that, isn't it?
Yeah,
They become part of us.
yeah,
That's the way, that's the very basic way of putting it, but it's almost like we internalize that place.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I think it's also, and in some way, I guess also vice versa. Um,
Mm.
the place begins to know you, and when it knows you, it's more willing to share some secrets with you.
Yes.
And of course, this was a place that had known me since I was born, almost.
Mm. Yes. Gosh, I'm just thinking of some things that have happened recently for me.
Yeah,
Um, it always happens connecting with new places, but I've been connecting with a very special woodland.
so that's nice.
Yeah, it's been really helping me. I think things that happen in the fairy realm, things that happen there, we might not understand at the time and wonder why did that happen?
Yeah,
And then it unfolds over time, isn't it? It's like this time lapse.
yeah. Well, there's a reason why these beans have always been associated with fate. It's always like fairies and elves. It's always been these beings that have been associated with either giving you luck or woe, as well as being able to give some kind of prophecy and advice of the future. Because I guess there's always been an idea that they kind of know about it or can even affect it.
I very much believe that from my experience and speaking to lots of people about fairies. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm interested in, and you might have already spoken about this, is the moon phases. Did you and your father go out on these moon walks at full moon or different phases of the moon? Did you choose the phase of the moon that you were going for these walks?
Almost always on or about full moon.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. I think there are some exceptions, but like more or less always on about because for a couple of reasons, mainly because well, my father's always been very fascinated with the moon, especially the full moon.
Mm,
Um, and it's also very hard to see anything at all when you're there when there's not full moon,
yes.
especially especially in summer when there's foliage or everywhere
Yeah.
and
Mm,
and the leaves are blocking out most of the starlight.
hmm. And is it a very watery place? Are there lots of lakes in the forest or
No, not that
uh,
one. There's one little lake. It's a relatively dry forest.
hmm.
A mixed beech and oak forest. Um, which with a castle because it used to was established more or less as a rural hunting forest back in the um, 16th century by a king.
Right. Yes, there's a lot of history there and history of human contact with the other
Yeah,
world there. Yes.
yeah. They also used to live deers in the forest until the beginning of the 19th century when they stopped using it as a hunting forest and then shot all the deers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I was I don't know. I kind of thought that I guess the stag horned fawn there that I saw that night too kind of was a bit of a memory of that in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of this shape-shifting
Yeah,
forms, isn't it?
yeah,
Fairies have.
yeah. Of course, for the rest of them, going around riding on spiders, because it
Yeah.
makes sense because, well, that's the animals they know. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So I'd love to hear another one of your experiences
Yes.
in the forest, Tristan. Unless there's anything else you have to say about
No, no.
that one. Yeah.
I think this one will be good.
Okay.
That was a bit later in the year, not much. This first one was April, and this is July the same year. It was very dark when we got to the entrance of the fairy place. The moon hadn't risen yet, so we didn't go in. Not very brave today. Outside on the big lawn, there was a great host of spiders, and this time it was goblins riding on them. And these goblins had guns and were shooting up in the air. In the middle, there was a gigantic spider that looked like a giant redback or black widow. We went by the road and to the aquarium path because back in the old days there used to also be the National Aquarium used to be by this forest. Now they've moved it to the other side of the city. We went round the back to the magnolia lawn, which was right in front of the castle, where we sat on the big magnolia tree with its branches spread, leaning over. I went off and I began to walk around the lawn. Dad followed, and we looked over at the memorial of the Norwegian king who was born in this castle, and his name was Håkon. There I saw a little dragon that was swimming around in the grass, as if it was water. We had an offering with us of crisp and light wafers. We weren't able to offer them at the fairy place, so we talked about where we could offer them. I suggested the place where the dragon was. He was now gone, but he bobbed up for a moment to lick himself. Meanwhile, I looked over towards the chestnut tree on the other side of the field, in front of the castle. There I saw a snake coming out of the ground with a cross and scepter. But as soon as he was out of the ground, he became a hedgehog. Then we went on and sat on the magnolia tree again, and I looked down through its branches and saw a little fairy bound in what looked like a butterfly cocoon. I could only see his head. From under the ground came a black hand and took him. I could see on his face that he was screaming loud. When the hand vanished, he became an old Viking sword. Then we agreed to offer the crackers to the diva in the magnolia tree. We found holes in the trunk to put them in. We stayed there for half an hour or so because the moon was shining a path directly to the castle and the magnolia lawn. The moon was only visible here and the lawn close to Denmark's aquarium, so we went there, and I saw a lot of spiders again. They had to keep a distance in a 5 meter circle, or else they would vanish maybe. Finally, they sent a messenger, a stag beetle. He was transparent like the spiders. When he came through, he became a book. This happened about 1 meter away. Then I looked at the moon, and the moon was so bright that I got lights in my eyes. When I looked back into the forest, my lights became a spinning helmet. Then I looked behind us over to the forest. It was lit up by an orange light. I couldn't see its source. There were two gnomes sitting there, male and female. They had red and white clothes, like the Danish nisses. Male gnome had a pointy red hat, about a foot high. Then there came a tiny gnome, 3 inches, probably their child. He was running over to us with something like a scroll in his hand. When he was half a meter away, he stumbled and fell into the ground. The two gnomes backed away into the forest. Then I saw an elf. He was a dark elf and was growling at us, showing rows of sharp, pointy teeth. He was covered in black fur. His skin was blackish grey and white eyes with black pupils and totally white hair. I looked away, and when I looked back, his head had fallen off. I didn't see who had cut it off. We left and went towards the castle to go home. Then, when we got close to the big uh, chestnut tree, not far from the gate, my dad called to me and said he saw a small figure about the size of a little child running like a shadow from behind the chestnut tree. When I looked, I saw a little black figure as well, popping his head out from behind the tree trunk. As we walked home, we talked about whether he was afraid of us or curious about us, or maybe both. As we left and came towards the place in the path where the silver beach had fallen down last year, I felt a small kick on the back of my leg near the ankle. After that, we took the train home.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the physical connections and also auditory as well, and whether when you're seeing these beings, whether you hear them talking or any music.
Almost never. Almost never.
No, it's all silent,
Yeah.
like a silent movie.
Yeah, like a silent movie.
Yeah.
As with the example here with the screaming fairy who where I didn't actually hear him, I could just see
Mm,
his look of terror and mouth opening.
yeah, but they seem to be able to touch you
Yeah. Uh,
physically.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's quite a few instances where they're able to touch me, or at least they're able to give me the sensation of being touched.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't really have any evidence for either, of course. Uh, I don't have examples of where I felt kicks and could see a bruising or something afterwards, like I think you sometimes hear about.
No, no, but I think it's more of a, it's just letting you know they're there, isn't it? Rather than being something, well, that's the way I interpret it. Rather than something malicious, it's that I'm here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, letting you know.
In that case, I think yeah, some degree of mischief. And yeah, to say that they're real, and I guess yeah, maybe not some malicious, but also I guess a reminder of to remember to respect them.
Yeah, I felt that. I felt like the bottom of my coat being tugged when I'm in certain places. And
Hmm.
yeah, so I know what you mean. It's just like a reminder that what you're seeing, or yeah, what you're seeing and experiencing is real on some level. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Have you ever heard any sounds in dreams or music? Because I've spoken to quite a few people that have heard fairy music, and that seems to be quite common in relation to fairies. Is that something you've heard in dreams?
Mm, occasionally, of on some of these walks, both my father and I have heard like the sound of bells or chimes.
Yes.
Yeah, which may be from fairies, maybe heralding that that something's going to begin soon. But of course, I haven't directly seen them, had heard those chimes and had the visions there at the same time. Usually, there was one instance of sound which wasn't music, but where there was a being in the forest which was had a hammer and was knocking on the ground where I could hear like the booms from it.
Ah. Right. Yeah, I've heard other people speaking like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, because they're known to have tools, aren't they? Like us.
Yeah.
So hammers for metalworking or axes for digging into rock or shoveling into the earth. Yeah,
Yeah.
looking for minerals. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, they've often seen them with tools or even weapons, as of course was evidence in this last one with the goblins in the beginning with their guns.
With the guns,
Yeah,
yes.
I guess so. Pistols or revolvers or something they had.
And what were they shooting at again? They were shooting into the air.
Yeah, they're shooting up into the air. They're
Mm.
like a wild host.
Yeah, like just causing chaos.
Yeah, riding on their spiders, firing up into the air with the giant spider in the middle.
Fantastic. So, are there any other experiences about the forest?
Oh, there are many experiences about the forest. There's no doubt about that. I can definitely find another. Ooh, I guess try one of the later ones, perhaps. Yes, this one's good. Talking about tools, after all. See, we have the one in winter instead. Yeah, so I guess this is yeah, December 2010. So a few years later. A little goblin sitting there assembling clockwork like machines. Around him was walking spider-like machines, and he seemed very peaceful sitting on a stump, about 45 centimeters tall. And his head was the size of a grapefruit, and his skin was dark brown. He held the clock like wheel up for me to see it, as if he was very proud of his work. Then we came to the grass plain, where I saw an army of goblins with thick armor, thick cloaks, short legs, and serrated swords, much more warrior-like than the goblins I'd seen at home. About 1,000 of them, and more coming out of the ground. They were marching towards the White Castle, and the elves attacked them in vain. And then there were other goblins that were sieging the trees, shooting at elves with ballistas. After that, we went to the fairy place. I hesitated because there was an elf there with a crossbow pointing at us. We had to go left because he pointed the crossbow at me and then kind of gestured that we had to go left. Yeah. Then he broke his crossbow and out of it came a giant arrow. Then we sat on the stumps and I saw a very large woman um, by the gnome stumps, dressed like Queen Elizabeth the First. Should note. Then came some goblin scouts who were killed by the elves, not as well armed as the other goblins. The woman disappeared when she saw them. Then I saw on the other stump a wizard with animal horns in his hat. He was dressed in animal fur. He summoned a sword in his hand, which I broke with my willpower. He made a note that said, "Magic is their will, which you can break with your own will." He summoned a new sword, which also broke. A third sword also broke, which took a bit longer. Then he threw a carpet in the ground and held his hands up in surrender.
What do you get from that, from what the wizard's actions there with the swords and the carpet?
It's not one I have analyzed that much myself. But it seems like some kind of test
Mm-hmm.
of a bit of a test of saying, well, this is my magic. How good is yours?
Okay, yeah, so he's challenging you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, kind of um, yeah, I guess I kind of interpreted that carpet that he summoned in the end as kind of like now throwing in the towel.
Right, yeah. Tristan, when you were seeing these beings in the forest, what sort of state were you in? Were you in like a trance-like state?
Well, that was kind of the weird thing about it because I was quite lucid. Nowadays I'm pretty sure I must have been in some kind of altered state, but it was like
Right.
not
Mhm.
not something that was really noticeable, not by myself anyway. Uh, it seemed a lot like I just kind of stepped in and then I saw this. um, all these had these visions, and of course, in this period here where I'm describing, they had become rather violent, um, which seemed to have been a development that the forest was going through at that time, where it became where a lot of it did become darker, and it seemed that there was some kind of war going on.
Okay. Was that in correlation with you getting older? Or do you think that there was a change in the energies of the place for some reason? Was there some construction going on, or had something been disturbed in the area?
Yeah, yeah, they would. Yeah, we did have some periods here where occasionally there were a lot of trees that got cut down.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Um, because well, nowadays that forest is protected, so you can't cut down trees. But in those days, the government used a lot of the government-owned forests were also used as lumber forests.
Oh, I see.
Uh, yeah. So that would cut down a lot of trees in some periods, and I do think around the time, as far as I remember, there was a relatively large chunk that had been more or less cleared. So that might have been something to do with that. And also, those years it kind of escalated a bit because they were going to make these rules about protecting the government forest as biodiversity forest, as they called it, as they still call it. So I think that the forestry department was trying to just get the last money out of them.
Right. Yeah. So it's what it feels like to me. I don't want to put interpretation on your experience, but I suppose I'm just going back to my own experience with woodland that is managed by a forestry company, and that is also managed by an organisation that's more interested in preservation of the environment. And
Yeah.
that clash of intentions
Yes.
can cause this rift, can't it?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
That way you have.
So so then the beings in that place are feeling that, and as you say, it causes conflict in the other world as well.
Yeah.
Were there any moments where you and your father felt like we shouldn't be here tonight, we need to leave now?
For me, yeah, lots of times. For him, not really. I think there was often a lot of times I would kind of point out he would want to go and sit by some of these trees, either this magnolia tree that we talked about here or the love hut tree, um, or something where I would point out that um, there's already someone there that doesn't seem to want us over there.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course we wouldn't go there because well that would of course be disrespectful.
Yes.
But yeah, since I was the one who could see these things, then I was the one who would kind of say it.
Yeah, you were sensing it. And as time went on, Tristan, did your sense or connection, the strength of connection with this place, has that diminished, or can you still go into the forest and feel those beings there, or have a sense that they're there in some way?
I can relatively easily go into some kind of state where I can feel these things if I want to, but it's definitely diminished.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Also because a lot of these places which are described in these BODAVs, they don't exist anymore.
Mm.
Um, the lava tree got cut down. Um, a lot of these other trees in that area as well have later been cut down. Not, I don't know why. Maybe because they were in the park area rather than the forest area. There was some fear that they would fall.
Mm.
Um, and uh, so that area has changed quite considerably. Um, Also that magnolia tree that we talked about there, that was very old, and they cleared it away. Also,
Mm.
quite a few years ago. The oak tree that I talked about with the fawn coming out of it by this place that we call the fairy place.
Mm.
Uh, it has fallen in a storm 6 months ago.
Right, yes.
So
Mm.
generally, the place is a very different forest than the one I describe in my journals here.
Mm-hmm. And so sad, isn't it, when trees are thoughtlessly cut down? And
It is. It is.
yeah.
It's quite sad that, and generally that's not something that we're that good at in Denmark. The uh, actually taking the precautions necessary to live alongside big trees, because it's cheaper just to cut them down, which is bad.
From your experience, from these precious experiences you had with this place, what would your message be to the next generation of young people about the environment and trees and these places?
Well, it's to remember that these places, even if you don't see them as sacred, remember that these are unique. They are places that when first they have disappeared, they can't come back again. And that we should consider thinking about them the same way as we do great works of art or great pieces of architecture, um, as something that is unique and is a part of our culture and who we are as people. Remember, this beauty is fragile, and we need to let it exist.
Definitely. I totally agree. And yes, we just need to preserve these places. We need to honour what we have, and before it's gone.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you think these beings have retreated more deeply into the forest?
Yeah, I don't think that they can be removed in that way. Generally, my experiences have shown me that just like I could have experiences of these beings in my room, like in this flat complex area. I could also have experiences of them in nature. They can exist in some way anywhere, but they don't seem to like it if you force them out of the way that they exist currently. Because of course they don't. It's like everyone else. If you do get evicted from your house forcefully, you will find a different way of existing, but there will still be trauma.
Yes. And that's when these places need time to heal, don't they? Like we do.
Yeah.
Where can people access the BODAVs? I think you told me this last time. So I've probably got the last episode we recorded.
Yeah, there's a Facebook page for it. I think we can just write a message to that Facebook page, and then if you want a copy of the BODAVs, then we can send one there.
Thank you, Tristan, for speaking to me.
Of course. Thank you. It was a nice conversation.
Yeah, it was good. I could listen to your stories all night. So interesting.
Yeah, there are quite a few more, but there were a few highlights.
Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, take care. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
This show is entirely created and edited by me. Appreciate your support and for listening. If you have a paranormal or fairy story that you'd like to share with me, email the show clairefairywhisperer@gmail.com or claire@thefairywhispering.com. Thank you. See you next time. Bye for now.